I call this the pain threshold. For any offer, there's a certain pain threshold that must be met to make the buying decision a no-brainer. And this is not what 100% of the time, because I'm gonna contradict myself in a few seconds. But for most situations, and Michael and Kat just joined, so I'll use them as an example. If they're helping people, let's say, who have a 9 to 5, build another source of income by starting a short-term rental business that replaces their 9 to 5 income, maybe the pain that their ideal prospect is in is they really hate their boss and their boss is giving them a really hard time. And maybe that situation has to accumulate enough pain to hit a certain threshold where they're like, what? Fuck this. Enough is enough. Like, I'm done. I don't want to I don't want to keep disrespecting myself by working here. And I don't want to just get another job and start playing this out somewhere else. In your case, Sophie, maybe it's a certain amount of their hair has to fall out, a certain amount of times they have to go out with a lot of acne on their face. They have to look in the mirror and see the excess weight a whole bunch of times before they're like, enough is enough. And someone who's at the beginning of that journey may not have experienced enough pain to be fed up enough to do something about it, right? Someone who's starting, whose pain bucket is empty, is going to need a lot more education and convincing. Someone whose pain bucket is full is going to need very little. Now, I just want to play devil's advocate with myself and give you guys the flip side, because that's important too. I just invested in a coach, and this is a person who hosted like a free intro class for Russian martial arts that dates back to the 10th century called Sistema. And I went to this intro class, really enjoyed the philosophy behind this thing. And it had been something that I wanted to do for a while, but I hadn't ever come across something that really resonated. And it just felt like a hell yes. And after the class, I basically, paid him in full to work with him one-on-one. And I went up to him and I asked him, he wasn't selling anything. I asked him, like, hey, what does it look like to work with you one-on-one? He, shares. And then my next statement was, how do I pay you? I bought from him. I took the value from him. And this was not pain motivated purchase. We move away from pain and we move towards pleasure. So typically, a lot of marketing, and rightfully so, is focused on moving away from pain. So what we just talked about before is a great example of a certain pain threshold that needs to be met before someone has the activation energy to, actually make the purchase. But some people are more likely to buy from pleasure, but that's fewer people and it's harder. So, we'll get those people for free as we also talk about where we're taking people to. So by painting a picture of the destination, that's how we appeal to the people who are more oriented by pleasure. In this case, the example that I'm giving you in my purchase in working with this guy, what attracted me was not going away from pain, not moving towards a certain outcome. It was actually the philosophy and the values and the principles of the vehicle. So that is the highest level of purchase decision category, where I'm not buying to eliminate pain. I'm not buying to get pleasure. It's not really pleasurable to get hit and have knives and other implements be involved, super intense. I'm buying because of a values alignment. I'm buying because the philosophy of the thing really speaks to me and resonates with me. That's the highest tier of purchase. So that's why I keep going back to this, where the more you talk about, express, articulate your values, who you are, how you see the world, your perspectives, the position you take on the market, why you do things this way versus that way. What are some controversial thoughts you believe that a lot of people would be pissed off by and disagree with? All those things they create desire for the most sophisticated and desirable buyers for your offers. Because, like, in my purchase of this, there were no objections. He didn't even have to make me an offer, right? And it's 100% the idea is generated inside my head. And I'm like, I like this. I want to have it. And it's as close to zero effort as it gets for him. So selling to the most sophisticated people, their buying criteria is different. So that's why we need that layer of philosophy, values, principles, all that stuff, right? Then the next tier is selling to the outcome and the positive and the dream and the desire and the pleasure. Here's what happens on the other side. You replace your 9 to 5 income. You have location freedom. You feel really good about yourself because you were able to start a business and help people and help your family as well. This is who you become in the process, destination, right? Pleasure. And then the lowest tier, and I don't mean low as in it's bad, but really that's the base tier. That's where most people are. Most people are in pain and they want to get out of pain. That's where we talk about here's the pain that you're in that there's actually a way to get out of. And in that category, the easiest people to speak to who will enroll with the least amount of energy are the people who are really fed up with either status quo or all the other solutions that they've tried. I tried this, didn't work. Tried this, kind of worked, but not really. Tried this, super frustrating. Now I'm really fed up. I really don't want to be in pain. And I've actually done a bunch of stuff to get out of pain, but nothing really worked. So when your message appears and you show why those things didn't work and why your thing is different, it creates an immediate point of resonance. And that gets their attention. And those people are obviously in some ways better to sell to than someone who's experiencing pain, but hasn't really done anything about it. You don't want to be the person who's motivating someone to get out of pain and try stuff. It takes more energy. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to see the market in a
Go.
way, we're trying to see the market in a way that allows us to expend the least amount of energy and be maximally resonant with the kind of people that would, A, want to work with us, but also get the best results.
So
We want to give people a way to buy based on their criteria, right? Like for you, you value the philosophy, but someone else may just value the pain or just the benefit. Some all three, some two of the three. We want to, if we include all the elements, then we let the market decide what feels relevant to them and they can buy based on their criteria. So if we just draw here, so let's say this is selling based on philosophy and values, right? This is the realm of here's what I believe. And the second tier is desires, pleasure, outcome, state, right? Here's where I'm going to get you to. Here's who you'll become, right? It could be identity. So who they become could be what changes in their life as a result of working with us. And then the lowest tier is relief from pain and solution to painful problems. So what we're saying is the most sophisticated part of the market are operating at this level of philosophy and values. And the least sophisticated, and this is not a moral judgment again, they're basically focused on how do I get out of pain? They're just like, this sucks. I want it to suck less. And interestingly, the people who are the most sophisticated, who are operating at the level of philosophy and values, they need the least energy to be sold because in their mind, they've already eliminated most of the market because most of the market is not a philosophy and values alignment.
No.
And they're not making the comparison with all our competition saying, oh, they're doing the same thing. Like, what's different about this? Like, can I get a discount? Like, when I made the decision to work with this martial arts coach, I didn't price shop. I didn't look up competitors, other people offering the same service. I didn't pit him against other people in the market. And he expended zero energy to enroll me. I enrolled myself, right? And the longevity of that relationship is also going to be way higher than someone who's just coming for relief from pain. So, top tier, the most sophisticated people who operate, whose buying criteria is philosophy and values, they need the least amount of energy to be sold. On the other hand, the people who are primarily oriented around finding relief from pain, getting away from pain, they're problem oriented, they need the most amount of energy to be sold.
Yep. Seen that.
Um, and the middle tier is, let's just say, needs some energy to be sold. And now and so this pyramid also represents the population. So most people in the market are in pain, want to get out of pain category. The next chunk of people are in want, desire, want, pleasure, want outcome category. And very few people are in the philosophy and values category, right? So there's fewer people in that place. So when we think about our marketing, we want to have all three of these tiers represented in our messaging, in our offer, right? And that's
Yep.
implicit in how we're constructing these offers and how we're talking to the market. Now, within this base tier, which is the most number of people, because they want relief from pain. They're like, I'm in pain, get me out of pain. Not all of these people are created equal because there's a spectrum here as well. And that spectrum is, let's say, on the left end of the spectrum is they've done nothing, right? These are people who have tried nothing. They've done nothing. So I'm going to just demarcate that as red or orange here. And on the other end of the spectrum, I'm going to call that tried everything. So within that pain tranche, the people who are in pain, they're motivated to get out of pain. Most people, again, have done nothing, right? They haven't really done anything to get out of pain. And some people, relatively fewer, they've tried everything. They've tried other solutions for weight loss. They've tried this diet. They tried that diet. They tried calorie counting. They tried fasting. For whatever reason, it didn't work. And they're pretty fed up. They're fed up with the problem because they've been sitting with the problem for the longest amount of time. They've been suffering for the longest amount of time. And the dissonance is way higher than the people on the left in the orange because they've actually tried to solve the problem and they've been unsuccessful. So they've spent attention, energy trying to solve the problem and they haven't gotten the kind of result that they want. So these people are again the best to sell to within the pain tier because they're pretty fed up. They've tried a whole bunch of solutions. Yours is not the first attempt at goal. Your solution is not their first stab at getting relief. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to get those people who literally they discovered the problem and this is their first stab at doing something because that's exactly the example that I gave you. I've never trained in martial arts. I mean, I've taken a class here or two, but this was my first purchase in that domain, right? So you will get all of those other people. What we want to do is we want to optimize our business for maximal efficiency, which means that we want to intentionally speak to people who need the least amount of energy to enroll while accounting for the others. So we want to represent our philosophy and values. We want to have the desires, pleasures, the outcome states, the identity, the results that they would get to. We want to talk about the pain and problems that they're stewing inside of that they want relief from. But we also want to speak to the people like, hey, are you the kind of person who wants the outcome, but you've tried this, you've tried that, nothing worked. This is why it didn't work, and this is why our solution is better. And when we approach our the architecture of our business and our messaging in this way, we're able to absorb maximum energy from our environment, which is the market, with the least amount of effort. We have a way to speak to every location on the market, on the spectrum, and we're doing so intelligently in a way that we're not wasting a lot of time and energy talking to people who need a lot of convincing.
Every single time, like when you're talking about it, I could think about all the sales calls I've been on, or all the different styles of students, and I can see them at all the different levels that you just said. We've done it, like we've done that. It's just like it's very nice to see it that way too. And there's some people you hop on a call and they're like, "I'm ready." Like you don't have to say anything. And like we were like that with you, Ani. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure we're just like we had already made that decision and we
Right.
aligned with values because you spoke to our core.
Yeah.
And because this model doesn't need, we don't need hundreds or thousands of people, we just need a few. It's
Mhm.
much more efficient for us to speak to the people who are really our people because the resonance is already there. It doesn't need to be created with effort. And it's better for them, it's better for us. And it allows the business to be way more fun and chill. To me, the best articulation of ideas, when someone hears it, it's like, oh shit, like this intuitively makes sense. Hey, when I look at the business, yeah, I see this playing out. That's the best litmus test because it's not a theoretical concept, it's an explanation of how things work, like gravity. I think this is useful as a concept to understand because to me, the idea of creating content and doing marketing, like it just feels so overwhelming. But if I can understand, okay, it's actually these three categories. And as long as I'm speaking to these three categories, it gets me 80, 90% of the way there. So that's why in all the email sequences and in the 20-minute video, like I put, I lead with the philosophy because I talk about, hey, these are my values. Like I want to go work out in the middle of the day. I want to travel. I don't want to spend all my time on Zoom calls and look at my calendar and just have a massive amount of anxiety and stress because where am I going to fit in myself in the middle of all of these commitments? And then but I also talk about what's possible. And then I also talk about the problems.
Yeah.
So I think there's a beautiful layer cake that we can, even in your offers, we have the philosophy, we have the values, we have the outcome. It's built in already to how we're thinking about this. Hopefully, this makes it even more easy to put in emails. Like in the email launch, you can have one email about the problems, another email about the solutions, another email about the values, right? The fractal basically appears in all the places, right? It's in the offer, in how we articulate the offer in the doc. It's in the content. It's in the launches via email and social. It's even in how we do sales conversations over email and DMs, where maybe some people are motivated by the pain of having a 9 to 5. Other people they've always wanted to start a business, but nothing's ever appealed to them, or they just like the idea of freedom and having control of their time and money. And that's what they care about.